I spend my life researching and teaching people how to live a powerful life. I am a believer. I stand for the transformation of humanity. I have found my purpose. My name is Gabrielle McGee, and I am the Rebellious Therapist. So I want to welcome you to the Rebellious Therapist podcast. And today is going to be quite an interesting day because I have just been surprised with my two besties from New York, and they'll introduce themselves in a minute. They shared space sisters, and I had planned today to do the podcast with Rebecca. So we decided that we were just going to go and really join and really have a day of fun, laughter, and talk all things life. So welcome, Gemma, Kira, and Rebecca. What a treat for me today.
I know, all the girls.
Yeah, it's a girly day. I needed a girly day,
yeah,
you know?
All the girls.
Gonna have the chats.
Yeah, all the things.
Talk all things life.
Yeah. So, first of all, I think what I always like to get my guests to do is to introduce themselves, you know, because I think, you know, how it's always a great idea to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, how you want to be represented. So, I think share space sisters. Who wants to go first? And
I will.
Yeah.
I'm Gemma. I'm one half of the shared space. I began as one of Gabrielle's clients a few years ago and naturally progressed into a mentorship. She is my mentor now, mentors me through the industry and the business. And yeah, we were on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, so you guys might have already known that, but yeah. And I'm Kira's sister.
Yeah.
I'm Kira. I'm in the other half of the shared space, and yeah, it's our second time here, so it's an absolute honour to be here in real life this time.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Because we did it through Zoom the last time, and we were in New York, and now we're in Ireland.
That's amazing.
So yeah, again, was one of Gabrielle's clients, and have now transitioned into a mentorship with her and dear friend.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool. So, thank you for surprising me.
of course.
So, Rebecca, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. So my name is Rebecca Shortt. I am a social media personality. You can find me on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, where I talk a lot about astrology, life, confidence. I also have my own brand that I launched in June called the Hot Girl Guide, which again centers totally around confidence. And how I know Gabrielle is I'm also a social media strategist. So all things social media, when it comes to strategy, photo, video, content, that's me as well. So I like to do a lot of things to keep it interesting.
Yes. Thank you. Which is really interesting because both you and Gemma and Kira really support me with my social media stuff. You know, it's like my life is so much easier because I don't know, the support and the community I have built up with this is just like, oh my God, I think community is everything, and girl power, like women supporting women, is just something that we cannot ever live without. And with, you know, without that in my life would never be as rich as it is right now. So I want to say a really public thank you, and acknowledgement to all of you.
Thank you.
Woo, gosh.
And, you know, I was just thinking when you were talking, most of the time me and Rebecca talks about it's about 10 o'clock at night, and we'd be just like rattling on. And Rebecca is a night owl. Not right, Rebecca?
I'm such a night.
I know,
I was born
I'm like
at midnight,
Rebecca, I have got
so
to sleep now at
night
night.
owl.
I know, it's so funny. But look, hey, my life is really rich. I love what I do. I love working with these girls and empowering their life. And I just want to thank you for really, you know, being in the space where you can really, you know, everything that I sort of teach you and talk about, that you honor that and you really apply it to your life and you get results. So I just want to say, you know what, that's my privilege. Yeah. And, you know, my purpose is the stand for humanity and empowering you to have a powerful life. And, you know, every day that gets sort of reflected back to me. And yeah, so
Yeah, we're living examples of your work.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we just didn't talk about it. We actually acted on it.
Yes,
And there's
very
a big
good.
difference. You
Yeah.
know?
I agree. I was thinking about this morning. I was thinking, all the people that I did work with, the people that, people are at different spaces in their life. And sometimes, people have given me advice, and I might not have heard that advice for maybe 10 or 20 years later. So I was thinking this morning, there's so much advice I've given people. Hopefully at some point they'll start to hear it.
It will resonate.
That's sort of fallen off the bandwagon or wherever it looks like, because that's life. It's one of the things in my job that I have to be really just sort of navigate myself through, because I've got so much passion and so much will to see people really transform their lives. But if people are not ready, I do find that quite a struggle.
Well, you always say that you want results. You're responsible for your clients' results.
Yeah. I just make myself 100% responsible, which is not it's not a very good idea, but I do. It's like I so want to be that transformational person in people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where that will be relatable now to people even listening at home is if you're trying to advise a close family member, friend on a situation, and they're not necessarily hearing it or doing exactly what you want them to do, that's where the friction may be.
Yes.
So it's it even happens for you as a therapist, client-therapist relationship. The same thing applies to any relationship in your life.
Absolutely.
So that don't get too wrapped up in the identity around trying to fix or help or save somebody. Because at the end of the day, it's down to them.
That I think that's the one where that sort of line, that sort of professional line, I have to be really, really clear all the time. It's like, okay, you know what, my wants for someone, and then my professional advice for someone, that needs navigated a lot.
Yeah.
And and I talk to you both and Rebecca. We discuss that a lot. It's like we have all got clients. We've all got that moment where what we wanted for the client, and where they sort of don't really hear the advice or whatever, and then how do you not get personal? So look. So
boundaries.
I just think, sorry,
boundaries.
Yeah, it's all about boundaries and and letting go.
Detachment.
No detachment.
Yeah.
It's all that. It's easier said than done, because we're all human beings and we all get
Exactly.
attached to. It's just how we operate, and then the discipline, and that is just really important. So so listen, so I think what I want to do is I want to look at there's so many. I was thinking about this because I was thinking about my podcast with Rebecca. So I'm going to share that now with you. You two is, Rebecca's doing a lot of astrology readings at the minute, and it's not something that I know a lot about. But do I believe in it? Yes, of course I do, right? But it's just not my end. So, and I was looking at, there's so many things and so many things involved in the life, and how the universe is really part of that. And sometimes we forget.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget. Some people have a much stronger conversation in their life daily. But actually, I forget a lot of times how much they influence. And I have, always to ask, what is that? I just keep finding myself, what does that mean? There's the moon, because I hear all the conversations going on. But I'm actually really fascinated by it.
Yeah.
So I want to just ask Rebecca, you got, before we come on here, you got you asked Gemma and Kira their date of birth and where they were born. So can you please give us a little sort of insight of what is that important in the life of astrology, and explain a bit about that background?
Well, I think when it comes to astrology, what most people use it for, especially in the 21st century, is understanding themselves and how they relate to the world, but also understanding other people. So when it comes to astrology, everyone probably knows their sun sign. So when they were born. So for example, if you were born between the 20th of March and the 20th of April, you're an Aries, and so on and so forth. So there's 12 of those. But the sun sign is only one part of a bigger picture, of a bigger chart. So the birth chart actually has all the 12 signs and all the planets and what planets are in that sign. It's like a picture of the solar system, essentially, when you were born, and how you relate to each planet and where that planet lies. So, for example, you could be a Taurus sun, and a lot of people, when they talk about astrology, if they don't really know, they're talking more so about pop astrology. So it's like the astrology that's in the back of the magazines, or, you know, just that little blurb. And they're like, how can every Taurus in the world feel this today? Like, that's not real. Where it's like, that's only a surface level understanding, because it's a lot more in depth than that. And it is a big subject and a big thing that people devote their lives to studying. So you have 12 different placements in your chart in 12 different houses. So there's so many combinations that people can have that make them who they are, and kind of, you know, it rules how we communicate, how we love, how we take action, how we show up in the world, who we are. And that's how I like to look at it. I don't like to look at it as like a linear thing of this is exactly who I am and this is exactly how my life's going to go and I can't change that or alter it. But I look at it in a fact of like, okay, these are my gifts and this is what I'm naturally good at. And I know that myself, but also it's reflected in my birth chart. So it's kind of reassuring for some people. And then these are potential challenges. And this is how I can react to challenges that come up maybe in patterns. Because a big thing about astrology is it's the study of patterns.
And it's really interesting because a lot of the Eastern, especially in the Indian culture, they use the astrology to actually look at if they're compatible in relationships or marriage. That's where the first thing is, that's the first place they look. So I watched something on Netflix is about those Indian, we call it programs where the woman, she goes around the world and matches up the couples. But they look at the birth signs first before they even meet. And I'm just wondering, you know, is that something you'd advise people to do?
Well, I think when it comes to astrology, so astrology was actually, it's dated back to up to 25,000 years ago. In the caves, there were drawings of astrology and the stars and the moon and relating to that. And it was very popular in both Greek mythology and Roman culture. Julius Caesar actually, the money that was in circulation when Julius Caesar was ruling was Capricorn, because he was a Capricorn. And a lot of rulers in those times employed astrologers to figure out how they should go to battle, what their strategy should be, stuff like that. But essentially in the 18th and 19th century is when the age of information came around, so science. So, of course, if you look at astrology and you look at science, there are people who, you know, really science was this new thing and it was so exciting and there was meaning and there was, it was so linear and you could see exactly, okay, this is why this is. So then astrology kind of lost a bit of its credibility in a lot of cultures, especially in the West. So the West really clung on to the idea of science and the idea of structure. But also, if you think of it in a kind of conspiracy way, I guess, like there's a reason that maybe it lost a bit of its credibility, because essentially the biggest powers and the biggest governments in the world have astrologers on their books to, you know, they all employ them. So, and now it's more looked at a thing that women are interested in. Whereas if you go back to the Roman times, it was the rulers and the men, and Julius Caesar all were very into astrology.
Can I ask, why do you think it's all women now? We don't, so we're talking about the West here. We're talking about the Western culture. Because a lot of what happened when the science came in and we sort of, you know, started to focus on that, I feel at that point people started to lose connection with themselves. So why do you think the women are is there a reason, or is that like something that you think there's a reason why the women are now pushing this more forward again? Because I think sometimes the women make movement.
Yeah, I think in general, it's at the moment we're in the age of information now. So we're in the age of, asking questions and we moved ages actually in 2020. So we went into the age of information. So we want to know more about ourselves, about life, and that comes in. Spirituality is a big part of that. Of course, there's a more feminine energy that could be connected to astrology.
Yeah.
But also some of my favorite astrologers that I found on the internet are definitely men. So I think it just depends where you're looking. I think as with many things in life, it's easier to discredit something by saying, oh, women just do that. So I think that's where that narrative could potentially come from. But just to circle back on your question of relationships and astrology, because I know I kind of went too deep into the history of astrology. So essentially with relationships, like you could look at someone's birth chart and compare it to your birth chart and see if you could be compatible. But I wouldn't really recommend people being like, okay, I'm never being with a Libra man again because they're just flirts and they're going to cheat on me, that kind of way. So I think you could look at it that way, but I think,
all those Libra men out there.
If you were personally victimized by a Libra man.
This is not personal, is it, Rebecca?
No, I was the first one because a lot of people, Virgo men actually get the worst rep, I think.
Right. I didn't know this stuff.
Libra men, but I think with Libra men, it's like a lot of people just brand them as flirts and cheats. But I think if you're looking at anyone and judging them off face value or off their sun sign, or it's probably not the best way to navigate life.
What you're saying is a guideline. It's like somewhere to sort of look.
Exactly.
Reference.
Yeah, it's a reference point. Yeah.
And it's even really interesting, when you do get to know someone to then look at their chart or to use it as a way of like my friends would be dating someone and I'm like, okay, what's his birth chart? I want to see what's going on here. And it's more of a way to be like, oh yeah, he's very this could be a potential issue, but it might not materialize depending on the person. Do you know what I mean? But I just love looking
Rebecca,
at it.
I'm in a relationship for 20 years, so should I get my chart done? Maybe that's where it's all gone wrong. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So anything from your end, girls?
My biggest revelation lately is the full moon energy, and I know it was just a full moon last night, and the more I'm attuned to that, the more I actually realize how everything's just so intense around a full moon, and it kind of does give me a little bit of space to be like, okay, Ciara, you're not going crazy, because you know how they say the full moon people. Well,
look, it's very, very, it's very well known fact. It's a fact.
Yeah,
and a lot of mental health stuff, and especially in they're prepared for the full moon because they know things do go off.
Yeah,
in the hospitals and all. I know a lot of psychiatrists and
really
nurses and all. They know that's a time where they got to be really, really red alert.
So I think that would be a really interesting thing for people to be more aware of, because even in the last 2 days now, as I'm sitting here now, I'm full of this pent up energy, be it negative or positive, no judgment to it, but there's something in the air, I feel, for me. And last night was a full moon.
Yes.
So then I give myself a break when it's that kind of like that, and you're just kind of right, okay, relax, breathe, Ciara, don't put too much pressure on yourself if you're feeling so emotional right now, because it really, I think, is we're in the universe, we're in nature, we're part of nature, so I think it does affect us.
And I think once you acknowledge that, Ciara.
Yeah.
See, I actually went for a walk with my dog last night, and it was the most extraordinary,
amazing last night.
It was huge. It was beautiful. But the minute to connect with that is really powerful.
Yeah.
Rather than being really unconscious of it, and I think that's where you get into the real chaos state.
Yeah.
And I think once you acknowledge, okay, and then just connect with the energy of it, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. So, from an astrology point of view, Rebecca, what would you say about the full moon?
Well, the moon controls the tides, which is water. And as humans, we're what, like 90% water.
Wow.
So if we think the moon is controlling the tides, but it's not affecting our
Yeah,
emotions.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
How crazy is that?
Like there's things moving and shifting. And then so full moons it's every 2 weeks. So there's a new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon. And basically the new moon signifies new beginnings. And the full moons would signify closing of a chapter, endings, letting go of any energy that's not serving you. And of course, the moon is in a different sign, like every full moon. So last night's full moon was in Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, which depending on your rising sign, because if you look at your rising sign, you can look at your sun sign if you don't know your sun sign, but your rising sign is like more true to who you are in the moment, essentially, or who you show up as to the world. So in relation, say if there was an Aries full moon last night, and if I was an Aries rising, it might enhance my Aries quality. So like, you know, the playfulness, the directness, everything like that. But if you're a sign, because Aries is a fire sign, right? So there's 4 elements. But if you're maybe a water sign or an earth sign or an air sign, that's when you might feel quite overwhelmed by the new moon energy based on what sign it's in. So it's really good information to know, like, okay, this new moon's coming up. It's not that I'm going to dictate my life by the moon and I can't do this because the moon. But it's like, oh, I'm feeling this is coming up. Okay, the moon is actually in this sign, and that would make sense as to why I'm feeling that way.
And like, it's so funny because they talk about women being up and down in their moods and so much, but it's like when you're every 2 weeks, if something shifts, of course you're going to feel that change in nature. You know, I guess it's science and biology, really. At the end of the day, it's human beings and how they function.
There's actually a very interesting app called Stardust, and essentially because you can track your cycle with it, and it basically tracks your cycle with the moon. So women's bodies actually work, because the other way men are on a 24-hour clock, whereas women are on that 28-day clock. So we would be a lot similar to the moon cycles than we would to a man's cycle, essentially.
So I want to know, where does men look?
Yeah.
What do they look at, Rebecca?
So then it's directly related to our hormones. Is that right? Because if our hormones go by our period, so then how would that relate?
App says here, so for example, just to use it as an example, from an example standpoint, so at the moment my period is on the waxing crescent moon and my ovulation is on the waning gibbous moon. And what this means is pink moon witches are historically linked to life transitions towards leadership of power. You are a great time of personal expansion and ready to take on risks that may have otherwise been too daunting. It says, for centuries, people have tracked the movement of heavenly bodies in synchronization with our own. The word menstruation itself means moon change, and the journey of the moon exactly matches the length of a menstrual cycle. What does it all mean? Over centuries, a garden of potent symbolism has grown up around the little disc in the night sky. William Butler Yeats considered the moon a symbol of change. The Buddha achieved enlightenment on the day of the full moon. By syncing your period to the seen and the unseen cosmos, you're joining a history of people who celebrate the moon's influence on terrestrial life.
So I want to go back to one. So I really get the sort of, I don't know, Ciara, whether it's premenstrual or whatever, but there's so much, our bodies are so much built up with water. But what I would love to know is, when you, I'm just thinking about something I'm going to go back to the point where you said, no, if you were born around the full moon, you feel the full moon maybe even deeper or more intense. But I think you're feeling your birth at that point, because that would be going back to a memory. That would be going back to
technically, yeah,
an unconscious sort of feeling. I'd be really interested to see what's the connection there.
Ciara, you always find your birthday really intense.
Yeah.
Your birthday?
Yeah.
On my 3 days.
The same.
3 days by the week before my birthday, I just feel really weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this must be the time where I'm ready to go out into the world. And I'm not sure if I wanted to.
Yeah, but it's like they say,
I want to stay here.
because society has made your birthday a celebration, but then you're feeling like, you know, your friction against the celebration because you're like, I don't feel. And then
Sometimes your soul's feeling a bit more than, it's really interesting because I think for me, I feel things the week before my birthday of so much resistance.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people in the world can really.
Yeah, so if you don't like your birthday, it's okay. Basically, we're validating every part of you if you don't like your birthday right now because we're the same.
Yeah, and then maybe the people who really celebrate their birthday, maybe they couldn't wait to be born. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love my birthday, but I was like 10 days late.
I hate my birthday.
Also with birthdays as well, there's such a, like, there's a thing called a solar return in the astrology chart.
Mm-hmm.
So your solar return is essentially the sun doing a movement around the earth. Like every year for you is your solar return. So your solar return, depending on the year, especially, you know, for women, it's between age 27 and 31. That's called the Saturn return because that's when Saturn's returning as well as the solar return. So those birthdays for women can be very, very intense. And that's why it's shown that like during their 30s, women are more confident and feel more, you know, at peace and at home with themselves. But coming up to birthdays, you're essentially completing a cycle. Like it is a cycle. It's a cyclical thing. So, you know, you're ready to go into a new season. You're ready to finish an old season. So when it comes to astrology's birthdays, you should be feeling some form of emotion around your birthday. Do you know what I mean?
Intensity, yeah.
Intensity.
I guess that makes sense. So I still want to go back to one question I had. What happens to the men with the full moon? We sort of.
What happens to men in the full moon? Well, I mean, I don't think men react differently to the full moon than women do. But I think whatever you're feeling, it's heightened. And like in relation to that. So, you know, a lot of men during the full moon can get quite like they're neither here nor there. Do that kind of way. They can't really communicate efficiently. Like they just, because it's the moon and the cycles and all that is so essentially foreign to masculine energy. It can be quite confusing to men, I think. I wouldn't know in depth what actually happens to men on the full moon.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're all emotional beings
and stuff like that.
So I can actually get, you know, I can imagine because men, you know, prominent emotion is, you know, aggression, right? It's something that they do a lot of communication from, where we, you know, do a lot of crying when we're trying to communicate our emotion. So we can imagine if there's any intensity in that sort of cycle, that would enhance the intensity for men. That would make sense to me. I don't know about you, but that would be interesting to look at that a bit more, you know.
Well, I suppose a lot of people could look at their men in their life around that, you know, if you
I'm
become aware
going
of a
to
full
definitely
moon,
look at mine.
and you could even observe.
Oh, wow.
It's
So
balancing.
I just got a message in there. So it's actually our friend's anniversary. She passed away 2017, I think.
Oh.
And in honor of World Mental Health Day, because she died from mental health issues that actually ended up, her whole body shut down. I think it was from stress and, you know, then turn into substances to cope with the stress and just having nowhere to go.
So we just want to acknowledge this is World Mental Health Day.
Yeah.
And we did ask people on the live to, you know, send in any questions they had or anything they want to acknowledge for, you know, it's a really important time and day for us to really acknowledge our own mental health, but also acknowledge the people around us and really look and see, you know, who needs to be, you know, who needs a text or who needs a call or who needs just a hug. You know, it's really important that people know that we're here for them. So is there any questions on that, Ciara?
I don't think there was any question in it. It's just kind of like
acknowledgement,
something to reference on.
It's a vulnerable topic, though, for a public place like social media. You can probably see your friend in a different light, like, and what you went through and stuff like that. She's probably so confusing when it did happen.
Like, I actually think we always say that she didn't want to die, but life just got so hard for her that I think her whole physical self just gave up, along with the substance abuse as well.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to a podcast and Dr. Daniel Amen says that we are in the biggest depression now since the Great Depression. This right now.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people suffering out there.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is it going to take to turn this around?
Education.
Education and response. And probably, I think people having the willingness to reach out more.
Yeah.
And take away the stigma.
The shame.
The shame and the stigma and the weird that it's weird we don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And even when we go to talk about this stuff, we get so protective and careful about what we want to say. It has to be really, there has to be a daily conversation about, really champion our own mental health and our own emotional health. And, as you say, like, watch out for people around. If it's an epidemic. And I know, Dr. Emin is...
He's a brain doctor.
Yeah, he's a brain doctor, and he takes a lot of
clients.
Clients, and looks at their brain activity, and they can see so much from there. And I think that's something I'd like to see happening in Ireland, that we start doing the more the real work rather than the guessing work or the ignoring or the sort of taboo stuff. Let's really get ourselves up to date here. It's a time where we can all be responsible for something, and I think one of the things that's really interesting, that people don't even know what to say to people. That's even another education in itself.
How to support
that person and what to say or how to reach out, and then people, then left with the aftermath.
I think as well, if we change the narrative, like, we should look at, like, see, we're born, we go to school, we go to college, we get a job, and we essentially die, and then in the meantime you have, like, your relationships and all that. But if we start to change the narrative that your job is yourself, so you should go to work on yourself every day, because that should be your main priority, rather than getting up and being a teacher every day or getting up and being a doctor every day. Go to work on yourself every day, and everything else will then benefit from that.
Yeah.
Every part of your life, your career, your relationships, your whatever you're doing. Like, I think we need to change the narrative that work should be the work on yourself and not the work you're doing for somebody else to get paid.
Yes, part of.
Yeah. If we get up and look after ourselves every day and that's our job.
Yeah, and I think that has to be taught at a very young age.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we said on the live, it's like this stuff has to be taught from 4 years old. 4 years old,
Yeah.
The meditation, the communication, how they feel, and given the space in the room of really learning how to navigate themselves through the emotion. And also, it's like bring the trauma work into schools. It's like it's the approach to it at the minute is too much. It's dangerous to go near, which is really old fashioned. So there's a lot of work, I feel, a lot of awareness needs to be really, like, campaign for, and there's a lot of boundaries has to be brought in. First of all,
training,
right? And also, like, there's a lot of, like, walls to break down.
Yeah.
I always feel like there's two ways that people go down journeys, and one of them is they become a victim to their story, and the second one is they become empowered by their story.
Yeah.
And there's a really fine line, and there's like a moment in your journey that you really have to catch yourself and not start feeling sorry for yourself of all these things that's happened to you, and instead see them as opportunities to learn things about yourself rather than...
Yes, but you do that through education.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I feel like...
And that's where the young age education, for the kids, if that's the mindset we're teaching our kids, then they've got a chance going forward.
Yeah.
We've at least we've armed them with stuff that, they've got tools, they've got stuff to, be able to sort of understand where they're at, and it's okay where it's at. We can have an emotional feeling, and it's not going to be something that we get trapped in or we have to run away from, or we have to get the substance. Your friend used substance because she had no tolerance for what the emotional stuff that was coming up.
Yeah.
Or even not able to identify certain emotions. Like you always talk about anger being portrayed so negatively. But if you identify the anger and allow yourself to release it, it's not stuck in you. And then
anger, I always talk about anger is one of the most empowered emotion for people if they know how to navigate and use that power to, really inform themselves, right? But what happens is because it's such a taboo, it's such a, we approach anger so dysfunctional. So we're either suppressing it or we're exploding it out. So both ways to me is not an empowering context.
Or shame in the anger too.
Shame in it, all of it, right? So we've got a very dysfunctional relationship with anger. And then with that, what happens is we don't know, we're in the moment, we do not know how to navigate the intensity of the feeling. So what we do, we probably go for sugar, whatever. It doesn't matter what they're reaching for. It doesn't matter if it's, it's still got the same process of just trying to push it all down and not feel stuff,
But I think even something as small as like me and Mum went for sea swims since I've come back from New York. And I've lived here since I was 7 and I'm 32 now. And I never, it was only in the pandemic that, we were taught about our nervous system and calming that down. But if I was doing that since I was 7, but we could never go to the beach because it's never sunny. So you can only go to the beach when it's sunny. But
so you never went to the beach.
We never went to the beach. But if we knew the mental health benefits of getting into cold water every morning from a 7-year-old child,
even if your parents knew,
that's what I mean. If our parents knew, so then they could pass it down to us. But that's definitely something I'll be doing, is knowing how to calm down my nervous system in a natural way, like going into the sea
or
for
just
a swim.
getting the ice out cure.
Exactly.
Getting your hand, getting the kids to put cold water. And that's all the stuff I teach them. When they're nervous or they have to present at school, when they're kids, you teach them how to just run the cold water underneath their pulse so it calms them down and get them into the breath. Yeah. And give them really, give them that training process. To me, we're teaching children stuff at school that absolutely does not serve them in life. Mm-hmm. And I think we're pretty crazy at the moment. We can't see it, or we don't actually take it on the way we need to.
Yeah.
But that's that's me on my box, really. That's my big that's my mission to see. Look, when are we going to change this stuff? By when? It's not how. It's by when.
Yeah, when.
It's when. We need that really present now.
Yeah, train up a team to go into.
Totally.
It should be a module in school, like the same as maths, English.
It should be,
Emotional health is teach people how emotions show up and how to process them, why they arise, and how to deal with them.
Exactly. And it's that simple, Gemma. It really is that simple. And we've made it so complex. Yeah. Which it just really drives me insane.
Doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
But do you think that it came through shame?
It came through a lack of understanding and
fear.
Lack of education. It all starts there. People didn't understand it. My parents didn't understand it. The next generation is only now. We forget it's only now. This is one of the things that I talk about social media. Why I love it so much, because it's given us so much access to information. Even though it gets a hard, there's different ends to it where it can do damage, but actually it's doing a lot of good. So we're never been as educated as we are right now, and we forget that. Because, I remember being 15, 16, not knowing the damn what was going on with me. And I thought I only had the sense to say, right, okay, I need to figure this shit out. And I don't care where I go. And I need to figure out what's going on with these human beings in front of me, because they are really confusing me. Right? So I went to I got on a plane and went to London. But it was a time where there was no phones, no nothing. You couldn't find the information. And you had to get... There's this thing called, and that's really funny, a book called Yellow Pages. Imagine having to explain that.
The phone book.
Get the phone book out and try and find a therapist, try to find all the stuff. So it's something I always keep on hampering on about. It's like, we are so lucky now. Everything is immediately
Googleable.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also saw a video today. It's actually so pertains to the subject. It was a guy, the clip was a mother saying, I don't know what's wrong with this generation. Everyone's depressed and everyone's anxious, and we never had any of that growing up. And basically the guy who was making the video said it's because now people are trying to undo not only their own traumas, it's all generational. So it's so much more intense, because he said he was relating it to himself, and he said he was sitting in therapy one day and he was like, it shouldn't be me here working through this. It should be my dad.
Yeah.
Because if my dad did work through, then I wouldn't have to.
Wouldn't have to carry
so I
the
think
generational
a big
stuff.
thing with the levels of intense, you know, depression and the way society is, it's because we have so much information now. Like I said, we're in the age of information. So, and especially Gen Z, they're looking at people in their 50s and 60s who have worked all their lives, don't have much to show for it, maybe more stressed than ever. So they're like, right,
there's actually a report, Rebecca. There's a report out today where there's an epidemic of over 50s really depressed.
Yeah.
There's so a big report.
So then the younger people are looking at that being like, we need to change that. And then they're going to change it, and they're realizing that it's generation upon generation upon generation before them.
Very interesting.
That didn't sort out their shit. So now, because they didn't have the access to.
Didn't have access.
Essentially. They didn't know, or they were scared, they were shamed. So now there's so much essentially energetic trauma placed on people between 0 and 30 to 40.
It's one of the things that's really interesting you mention that, right? Because one of the things that I am looking at the minute and studying is, along with my cousin, is the epigenetics, right? So we got the genetics, and then we got the epigenetic, which is the top layer of the gene. And a lot of that's influenced by your environment, or how you feel, or how you're brought up, and how, all of that sort of process. But then we look at the gene, and then all that stuff will be carried through from a process from your ancestral stuff. And also you got the collective unconscious, which a lot of the Buddhist stuff comes from. So it's like education again, awareness, and really looking at, okay, so it's all down to self-responsibility, right? So we have all the information, it's all there for us. So then at what point do I want to hand my, the generational trauma back to the past? And then, then what do I want to do with it? Am I going to carry it through the next generation? So there's a great sort of big, sort of personal responsibility on how we move forward as a generation. And that's why I love the millennials. The millennials were like, we're not having this. We're not going to be, part of a generation where we suffer. We want a big life. We want to find our purpose. We want to get up and really, be empowered by life. So that's why my work has been so amazing the last 3 years, because they've been all shown up in the demand for how to live a powerful life. And it is all part of what we look at in the sessions, is how do we give back the trauma of the generational stuff, and then how do we free ourselves up and live a life and choose a life and create a life that, we got personal freedom, personal responsibility, and personal choice. So it's all very exciting. It's so exciting, and it's just getting more and more and more, what's the word?
Intense.
We're getting more and more educated by ourselves. Even, it's like, okay, so schools are not doing it. So now, I have girls showing up by choice, with absolutely living a really powerful life. They're professionals, but they're about 19 years old. I'm like, wow, you would never have had that in the past. That's unheard of. So I'm really hopeful, and I'm really excited about where we're heading as a future, even though, but one of the things I will say about depression, I think we're more aware that the depression is there. Might be more depression, but we're also more aware that depression is there.
Oh, so why the numbers might be higher.
Yes. So, there's a whole, I think it's all been sort of brought up to the surface, which is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
But I feel like even since we started openly talking about emotional health in our journey, the more it's now attracted people to us that open up.
Exactly.
And then you actually in turn find you get even deeper connections with people because it opens up a whole nother space when you speak to somebody at that level and they feel heard and seen and speak about their journey and stuff. Like the more, even with our family and stuff, like we've all, like this is Ciara's first time home in 4 years, and just like to have that open conversation and dialogue, to be able to do that would never have happened unless we started to speak out.
Unless you've done the work.
Done the work and yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Throw a spanner in the works.
Yes. Let's do it.
Can you go too far into the work that it gets so much? But not asking for a friend. That it just becomes like complete overwhelm, that you're like the way, so what you're describing there is telling people to, start the work, do whatever, but I actually feel like I have to relax a little bit.
I think, you put me in mind of the time when I started to train as a psychotherapist, right? And we were all a big group, but we were all analysing like everybody, like we were analysing ourselves like crazy. And we were going out to parties and we were all analysing, and we weren't even we forgot to have fun. Yeah. Right? So I think there is a balance.
But wouldn't that not just be saying like that's placing too much meaning on it? It's not actually anything to do with the work. It's you going on into overdrive.
Oh, like we're so passionate and we're so hungry for it, But I agree. I think there's a point where you just have to remember to breathe,
Yeah, and that's where I think I'm at right now.
Yeah,
in my stage. I'm like, there's only so much I can consume and apply to myself. That it just becomes like, right, well, who are you? I actually have lost, it's like, just be you, Ciara. That kind of way. Just choose to just relax today rather than overanalyze every single thing that's happening and going on around you. And it's like nearly when you're so aware, like you said, like you always say, big life, big problems. But when you're so aware, there's so much more responsibility and there's so much more consciousness of what's going on around you that sometimes I actually do have to just I have to maybe find something that can just switch off from.
Or ground yourself in.
Ground myself, which I try and do every day.
Yeah. And sometimes that can become an addiction.
Yeah. So that was my next question.
And it can come in avoidance.
Yeah.
You want to analyse everything around you, then that takes you away from yourself as well.
Yeah.
So that's what, that's where people hide behind as well. What are you going to say, Rebecca?
Ciara, your moon's in Virgo, so you're going to do that anyway.
What did you say?
Oh, that's funny. That's brilliant.
Your moon is in Virgo, and because I'm a Virgo moon as well, so with the emotions and the psyche and getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, you can you find security in the little things in life, in knowing the emotional depth between things. So your mind, and Virgos like to be perfectionists, so you want to be the best at doing the work, essentially. Yeah, which can drive you into...
I want to get an A+ in doing the work.
Was that not ego then?
No, not necessarily, no. But there's some part
Gemma
of
loves throwing out ego, the word ego.
Because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, but Gemma, ego is really useful.
I know that, but I'm saying it drives so much that we always forget to call it out, like in the good and bad ways.
Yeah.
But you went straight to negative there.
No, I didn't. I actually didn't.
But I want to know. So is Virgo on my sign? Because you might as well be explaining me. I like that. What do you mean?
You're Virgo rising, so you would have the big three are the sun, moon, and rising sign. So you, Ciara, would be a Leo sun. I think you're a Leo moon as well. Leo sun, Leo moon, or Leo sun, Leo rising, Virgo moon. You, Gabrielle, sorry, I just have them all on my phone here, so I'm trying to switch between charts. Gabrielle, you are an Aquarius sun, Cancer moon, Virgo rising.
And what does that mean?
My moon is also in Virgo. I'm a Taurus sun, Virgo moon, Sag rising. And then Gemma is a Taurus sun, Taurus moon, Pisces rising.
But so what does that mean?
So Gemma
means
doesn't
nothing to me.
Virgo.
Dumb it down,
Gemma,
Rebecca.
You don't have any Virgo in your chart, Gemma. So that's like, if you look at it from an outsider's, for someone listening right now, me and Gabrielle totally understood what Ciara was saying. or in a way. Whereas Gemma was like, yeah, but isn't that ego then?
Yeah.
You're so far.
I'm in the other house.
Yeah, she just said you're so far removed. That's
also that's Mercury in Aries. So Mercury in Aries will say what they're thinking because that's how you communicate. So it's fast.
Me, yeah.
So straight, yeah. So you have
It's
that
just
fast
linear,
kind of
yeah.
fire energy of communicating.
Yeah.
Which is the same as me. So we don't really think before we speak. We speak and just hope that it goes well.
Yeah. Cut the bullshit though. Like, let's get to it.
Yeah, no bullshit.
Yeah, just talk it out.
Let's not dance around it.
That Virgo moon is so, if you even, Kira, after this, if you go away and look at Virgo moon and just Google like Virgo moon and what it means, you'll probably really relate to that. And that's, the moon represents all of your emotions. So, and Virgo is the perfectionist and hard worker and everything like that. So it's like me with astrology. Like I want to work hard to really understand astrology and navigate it. And you're probably like that with the whole world of therapy and doing the work and stuff, which, yeah. So when you don't have, because your probably hobby is learning about it, your work is learning about it.
Yes, me too.
So then you've no other outlet channel.
So it's like I need to take up like jujitsu or something. I don't know. Now this is the next thing.
Something
Like
polar opposite. Like
I need to take up something that's so out of the realm of what I'm doing.
Out of the head.
Out of the head.
Yeah. But I think you go through that process. You think you get overwhelmed or whatever it looks like, and then you come out of there and you're right on, because that's just the pattern, and it sounds like it's your star sign.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between me and Kira?
Oh, a lot. You've totally different charts. Like Kira has a lot of grounded energy. So there's earth, fire, air, and water. So earth is very grounded energy. Fire is very quick, fast energy. Air is very dreamy energy.
That's
and
Gabrielle.
water is kind of like intuition. So yeah, Gabrielle.
So dreamy, fire, and earth.
Like all air and water.
Yeah.
So basically, because my way of communicating and taking action is Aries, which is a fire sign, I'm take it very quick and fast. So when it's relating to myself, I understand it easier. Whereas I don't have a lot of the air and water in my chart. So I don't understand it as much because I don't look into it as much, essentially.
Yeah, yet.
So what would you say, like from now having heard Rebecca's side of it and knowing your background, what would you say to the people who are like, astrology is a load of shite? And what kind of use could it be for like somebody who maybe doesn't really believe in it?
I think it's all information.
Yeah.
Right? And how you use it, that's going to be up to you. Now, there's many a time I've heard people, not getting that's another thing where I used to think, oh my God, that is nonsense. People say, I'm this way because there was a new moon or that. And
exactly.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? So maybe I might not be that quick to judge that anymore, I think, after this call.
But that's a lack of responsibility.
Yeah,
this way because
this
of
is it. This is it. I think that's where they lose me, when there's no personal responsibility and why. It doesn't matter where the moon is, it doesn't matter where the stars are, it doesn't matter where the sun is, where it's rising or what it looks like. Then okay, let's come back to you. Where are you at? But I think I've learned loads today about maybe taking a bit more with more awareness.
Tune into it a little bit more, especially the full moon thing. I think it's the most useful for anybody and everybody in the grand scheme of a month. If you kind of just look at where the moon is at and just be like, okay, go easy on myself then.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really, really informative. What about you, Gemma? What have you heard?
Yeah.
I hear... What are you laughing at?
Nothing. I hear nothing.
No, I hear opportunity for direction. Yeah. So like if you're given this information and like a couple of things that you said, Rebecca, there's parts that like maybe because it's so strong, then you now have an opportunity to lean into it because you're given that information, whereas you would have missed it otherwise. Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't like personally like to go by it like Bible. Like I wouldn't want to like...
No.
Yeah, it's not one or the other, but I think
you're
guidance.
not supposed to, because you have free will at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you have the free will to decide, I'm going to completely rebel against this. Now, your birth chart will probably tell you that anyway.
The rebellious therapist will probably do that too.
But also, I'm not going to say like, oh, I'm a Taurus sun, so I'm never going to get up early ever again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
but
sometimes
that's
I will have
exactly
to.
my point, Rebecca. Because like the human design is another one which I really, really
We'll do
love.
an episode on that.
Yeah, we must do an episode on the human design. But another way of like what I find fascinating. Some people have a time in the day where they work stronger, and that could be 3 or 4 hours a day where they do the best work. But then they get stuck in, right, I can only work 3 hours a day. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not what it's for. It's really
and I
complex,
think people
isn't it?
sometimes get very locked into rules and ways to live and doing things exactly. It's like, if you look at it, for lack of a better comparison, when people emulate influencers' morning routines and they think they have to get up at 6 a.m. and meditate and drink water and go to the gym because that's what that person's doing, and I want their life, so I'm going to do exactly what they do. When at the end of the day, it's your life and you are in full control, in the driver's seat to whether you love astrology, whether you love science, whether you love, being in control, whatever you love. It's about finding what your gifts are, working with them to make your life easier, and then also noticing patterns that are repeating that are probably a challenge for you, and how to deal with them as well.
Interesting.
So that's kind of how I would round it out.
Yeah, you've just sort of I know we're wrapping up soon, but you've just reminded me something. A lot of times I was not even looking at. I think different times of your life where you will get deeper into stuff, and sometimes there's parts of life where that might not be sort of something that you're interested in or useful or whatever. But I find as I'm getting older, I'm more interested in looking at it rather than when I was really young. So I think we go through different processes as well with different type of work. I think it's all about what works for you. I've gone through so many different processes and teachings and all, and every one of those teachings told me this is the way. This is the only way.
So true. Yeah.
And then that's where the rebellious therapist had to come out and say, no, it's not for me. It's not the only way. I want to know all of it. So I want to choose. So I think it's all about that. Okay.
Exactly.
What a great conversation. We've been in so many different places on this.
So many different planets.
So many
Excuse
different
the pun.
Aries
We've
and
been in
Mercury
Rebecca's planet. We've been in Gemma's planet.
I don't
been
know
in
my
Kira's planet. And Gemma, she doesn't know what planet she's on today. So.
But we all want to be in it because she's in a great space.
I want to be in Gemma's planet today.
It's dissociation, probably.
So yeah, I want to say, look, thank you. I love you all. And until we, what, Kira?
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
You ask the question you ask everybody.
When is your...
the
Yes,
rebel.
I always forget to ask the question. At the end of my
question I
call.
always
We just did
forget
one
to
recently,
ask.
so go Rebecca first.
Yeah. Well, I've already answered that. But Rebecca...
Yeah. So Rebecca, the question I asked at the end of all my podcasts, I am the rebellious therapist, and that has served me so well in my life, right? So I want to know from you. I know there's a great rebel because I work with you, and there's the greatest rebel keeps showing up for me, which I really love. But where has that been of great value for you, Rebecca?
Oh, my entire life. Like, I am someone who, in every aspect of life, and it's actually a reoccurring theme I see in your podcast when people are asked this question. Everyone says they hate authority.
Yeah.
So I don't know, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah.
But I, from a very young age, I never succumbed to societal ideas, or if there was something I wanted to do, even if the world told me I couldn't do it, or someone told me I couldn't do it, or it wasn't the way to do something, I rebelled against that. Like, I dropped out of college. I decided to work for myself. I, changed careers maybe 31 more times than most. But I think that definitely served me because it's leading me along the path that I'm meant to be on. So I think if you're not rebelling against something in life, then you're not really standing for anything either.
Yeah, very good.
Very
I
good.
love
I
that.
love that.
Love
Yes.
that.
That's a note to finish on,
That's a
Rebecca.
moment. That's a moment when you talk and something good comes out, Gemma. Do you know when you talk sometimes you're like, oh, and then other times you're like,
I love
was a
that.
great
It's
one."
so satisfying. You're like, who said that? Me.
I literally had that moment. I was like, oh, I'm going to clip that now. But yeah, no, I do believe it though. It's very good. Like, Joe, if you're not rebelling, then you're just kind of going with what everyone else
With the
is
flow.
doing.
Is there anything you want to add from the last one?
The rebel got on the plane.
Yeah.
And the rebel in me is starting to just stand for herself now. I guess I was probably what Rebecca said, the one who was not rebelling. So I wasn't standing for anything. And now
Yes.
I'm starting to stand for myself. So like
Very
complete
good.
opposite ends of the spectrum, me and
Excellent.
Rebecca.
I'm rebel against my inner critic a lot. That's a big one. Like
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah,
working
yeah.
on
Yeah,
that
you gotta
every
do that.
single day.
Yeah. Excellent.
She's bitch.
They are bitches.
Hater.
Okay, so I want to say thank you.
Thank
you.
Till the next time.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Rebellious Therapist podcast. For more information, you can follow me, the Rebellious Therapist, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can find further information on my website, therebellioustherapist.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.